Hello everyone and welcome or welcome back. Well, I think mostly welcome because so far no one's watching these videos, but well, I'm dedicated with them. But yeah, well, welcome to my channel Knitted Art History, where I'm telling you some art history stories while knitting. But today again, I will not knit anything. So yeah, because I mean, I last night I finished the vest that I was doing, and well, I don't have well, I mean, you can see actually on the background that I have yarn, but well, not enough to make a full piece. So I need to buy I need to buy yarn. So so that's why I won't be knitting anything today. Well, welcome to another video where today we are gonna be talking about decorative arts again. My first video in decorative arts was about furniture, about Carlo Bugatti furniture. So well, feel free to go and watch it if you're interested. But today we're going to be talking about jewelry, actually, specifically jewelry of Gothic period. So I am myself a very well, I even put it like a lot of things today on myself because I'm very fond of jewelry, like it very much. I don't like to spend money on it though. So I mean, not mostly, actually everything that I have, it's actually it's presents from my family, from my friends, because they know that I like it. And well, yeah, but I really like to look at all of this. I really like to just browse into museum collections and to just look at all of these beautiful things. So let's dive into our video. So before we will get started directly about jewelry, I want just to make a little excursus into just overall this period, the period we're talking about, from 12th to 15th century. So this is, as I said, this period it's still in the area of medieval age, but it's called Gothic period. Gothic art arose in this period of time, and Gothic art will basically represent like the next stage after the Romanesque art was before that. And I think I actually mentioned this in Van Eyck video. I believe it was in Van Eyck video. Again, feel free to watch, to click about him if you're interested. That the word Gothic was used firstly. Well, the name itself was born in the Renaissance period, and it was obviously used as something, it was basically a synonym to barbarism. So basically, it was something, it was made of to make fun, to diminish everything. So we can technically also, say that Gothic art is like a little bit like more mature art than Romanesque, and it is religious in its form, but overall more sensitive to everything, to life, to nature, and to man. And man, I mean as a human being. In terms of periodization, it is very, it is well, not very, but it is kind of difficult, to draw a line between Romanesque and Gothic art, because technically, like 12th century, the first part of 12th century is still, it's like the downfall of Romanesque art, but the second half of the 12th century, it's already the rise of Gothic art, which is called like the early Gothic period. Gothic style in Western Europe reached its peak, which is like high Gothic period in the 13th century, and started to downfall bit by bit in 14th, 15th century, and this period is called as like Flaming Gothic, or I think the English term, like the English more correct term is will be flamboyant. So yeah, so this is the picture that we have, and obviously in different countries, Gothic style, it had like some of its like own variations. So for example, in France, which is the birthplace of Gothic art, Ile-de-France, if to be more like particular. The first ideas about Gothic art was done by Abad Suger, and I will not, go into details about him here, because he's actually, well, he was writing books, manuscripts, there is actually a lot of things. So I think it will be a little bit more correct to actually make a video on him, even though, it's not, well, technically like art history, but still he is a part of art history, because he was, he was creating these ideas that were than used in art, in different type of art. So yeah, so his like main idea about Gothic art, it was the light, the divine light. That's why he he actually was very also fond of jewelries and all of this precious stones and all of this stuff. That's why a lot of things during his like rule was created. So like different vessels, different reliquaries, different again jewelries, different crosses and all this stuff, and all of this were exquisite. All this was like with gold again, with some of precious stones, pearls, and whatever you can imagine. So yeah, so he's considered to be like the, I think I can call him like the father of Gothic art, of Gothic period, just overall, and architecture also. So he had some ideas. So that's how like everything started. But yeah, overall, in France, Gothic art is characterized by clarity of proportion, by sense of proportion, by elegance of forms, and etc. In England, Gothic was a little bit more heavier, with a lot of decoration in terms of architecture. In Germany, for example, Gothic took a little bit, more abstract turn, more mystical, but actually in expression character. In Spain, also completely different situation to the whole Europe, and just overall, for all of its art. In Spain, they combined a bit like traditional Gothic art with Moorish art, because as we all know, till like, if I'm not mistaken, 8th century, the Spain peninsula was under the rule of Muslim people, of Arab people, and yeah, so they were trying to combine, not trying, they were combining that. In terms of Italy, things also were completely different. I also think that I mentioned this in Van Eyck video, but again, I'm not sure, but well, whatever, I will repeat it or tell you again that Italian periodization is a little bit different to every other country, because they were flourishing so much in this period of time. The 12th century actually created, a fertile ground for already for emergence of the culture of Renaissance. So and this period of time, actually 12th and 13th century, it is called like this proto-Renaissance, not Gothic, not medieval ages, something like this. It's already, it has completely its own periodization, and it's 12th, 13th century is called Duecento, Trecento, and then 14th century, the like high Renaissance, and 15th century, the downfall of Renaissance, it's called like Quattrocento and Cinquecento. So yes, and that's why you will not actually see a lot of well, if any, examples of Gothic, like again traditional Gothic art as we imagine it. So there's just few of them in the part where Milan is, which is like near the France border. In this part, so they had there is, where in Milan also you can see the examples of Gothic architecture and just some of the Gothic art. But overall, all other Europe was not it. Did I say Europe? Italy. I'm talking about Italy. All of other Italy was completely, completely on its own, and it was, it was developing on its own. I mean, in university, I remember we were actually even studying, like we had the whole semester of period of Renaissance in Italy, and we studied everything starting from 12th century till 15th century as a completely different course, and then we were studying another Renaissances. Let's now move on to our jewelries. And well, here there is some problems, because you see, there is not a lot of pieces that survived for different reasons, because as we all know, there was a period of time that a lot of wars was going on. People were getting completely broke sometimes. I mean, nobility. So a lot of things were just basically destroyed. Some things were stolen. Some of things were melted. Different vessels, for example, from gold or silver. And that's why we don't have like a lot of different a lot of examples of Gothic jewelry. And oh, well, actually, what I wanted to actually mention about it. Well, maybe some of you can actually point out this to me, because I don't really understand. In Ukrainian, we have like two separate words for jewelry like this, and jewelry like again, reliquaries, like different table utensils, and well, all of this stuff. So, but as far as I saw, everything was used, that there were just the word jewelry used to like everything. So today we'll be not talking just about like rings or earrings or something like that. We'll be talking about everything. As I said, let's get in bed. A lot of pieces were destroyed, or a lot of pieces were stolen or something like that, and that's why, for information on the jewelry of the talking period that we have, like 12th, 15th century, we mostly rely, you know, on portraits, on sculpture, on just some descriptions, historical or something like that. But on portraits and statues, however, it needs to be mentioned that, well, those things might be real, those things might not be real. I think, you know, if it's a portrait of some famous person, like a real person, then I think that the jewelries are real, obviously. But well, not obviously, to be honest, because oh my god, because artists could sometimes, you know, add some things to make their customer look better. Basically, what I wanted to say, that that can be a reliable source, because artists tried to make everything into the fashion of the time, and they were adding, if these jewelers were not real, they were adding something that were popular back then in their time. Let's move on straight to our jewelry now. So as I said, the Gothic period starts from 12th century, but we can see a straight difference in changing of styles in architecture starting from 12th century, but in jewelry we would see a distinctive changes just by the end of 13th century, because new techniques started to appear. A lot of new supplies actually started to get to Europe, because Venice and Geneva, they strengthened their relationship, their context with Eastern countries, and just overall, there was a very rich cities. And and that's why, and every other city, like biggest city of Europe that we now know, they became, well, big like this and influenceable and important cities like this, like nearly in this period of time, 12th, 13th century. The transition from Romanesque jewelry to Gothic jewelry was kind of gradual, considering again the periodization, as I said already. Some of the nobility tried to show their social hierarchy using the jewelries, or different other pieces that were decorated with different techniques. This, together with the increase of availability of some gemstones and other different different things like pearls and all of this stuff, was a creation of series of laws. Like, for example, there were laws that forbade some commoners to wear certain types of jewelries. Another laws, for example, said that just certain types of nobility could wear some golden jewelry, which was enriched with some precious stones and etc. There were, for example, another law, we even know by year, that in 1331 in Paris there were a law created that you cannot use a paste to imitate gemstones. In 1355, I believe, was the law that prohibited the use of oriental pearls with river pearls together, and well, etc, etc. Obviously back then I think there was some logic in this law. For us maybe it's not so even, but well, maybe for jewelers, if you are a professional jeweler, you see some logic in that, but overall for us, like average people, I think it's kind of a strange laws, right? Except of that, that some certain, but for me also, it's very, I don't really understand what is the difference, what is to in this, well, I do understand that this is made to divide even more the society, but overall, even the laws about division is like very strange for me. So as I mentioned in the beginning, that overall the Gothic art was very colorful, and Gothic artists, Gothic masters, they vividly turned to vivid images and ideas that was sometimes generated by folk fantasies, but at the same time all of this were more on the rational side. Just overall Gothic art, we can say it's it's kind of internally contradictional. At the same time, it's very emotional, very vivid, very expressive art, but with this, but the forms that all of this is shown is more on the rational side, is more on the wanted to say scientific, but I don't know, I'm not sure that it will be very correct, but I think you understood what I'm talking about. In this period of time, also 12th to 13th century, the changes in social structures in Europe started to started and the new class actually emerged, the knightly class. So the chivalry and all this stuff, new interesting things started. They created this knights, such thing as courtly love. Basically what it is, you see, the main idea of this courtly love was to serve some of the beautiful lady. So it does not mean that they were directly into a relationship with them, obviously, because sometimes, you know, some of the knights, they could choose even married women, and the main idea was to serve her, you know, with this chivalry. So, well, I'm serving you, you know, I'm ready to die for you. Well, basically was the main idea. I'm ready to die for you. I'm going to the war because I'm fighting for you, you know, I'm going to some crusades because I'm praying for you, or something like that. The first thing that it influenced this courtly love, and where is it coming from, is from poetry, actually. And then obviously this also influenced jewelry. Now, you know, we have some like a little bit different things that was not there before. So for example, one of the first elements that got through the process of invention and changes was the costume decors, and especially fasteners. Here also I will have like to mention, to not to call it some of the things, because you see, these fasteners, they changed, and like women instead started to use graceful agrafs. And like in Ukrainian we have this word agraf, which is coming from the old French word agraf. And basically, well, I just wanted to mention that from now on I will use this term, I will use this word, because I haven't found the English analog to that. But it was basically agrafs. These are these things that were connecting the cuffs of your neckline, and this, well, basically we can say that it is like a brooch. But I am not really sure what is the difference between, you know, agraf and brooch. Well, maybe the usage, maybe the place where you were like placing. Maybe this is, you know, the thing why these two pieces have different names. But well, sorry, I will not be able to explain you the difference between that. Yeah, but I mean, I'll show you some of the example, but this is not the example also for courtly love. Just overall I found this piece, a very famous piece, actually. In a lot of articles, in a lot of books, this agraf is used. Such gifts of knights to their beloved ladies. They were obviously decorated with some love confessions, with some love inscriptions, with some love mottos. A part of that, very famous mottos were intertwined hands, pierced heart, some flowers, some keys, and etc, etc. Basically, like, you know, like the signs of love that we are also using now in our modern period of time. Another thing that niche of jewelry that I wanted to mention is actually rings. There's like, you know, an interesting thing, because their sense was changing throughout Gothic periods from 12th to 14th, 15th century. In the start, there was some kind of like a sign of some intimate relationship, and well, knights were also given to their beloved dames, beloved ladies, some rings with also intertwined hands, with some like ardent saying, and here and there. But I think I will put it actually here, because I will explain you also a little bit thing about engagement rings. So and just overall this engagement rings with diamonds and all this stuff that we now, you know, have this like tradition, which is not a tradition actually at all. Well, as I said, it was not a tradition, it was not a thing, it was never a thing. In the period, this very like with diamonds and all this stuff. In the Roman period, there were actually such a thing. they were, you know, given each other rings, but they were mostly created from metal, because you know, there was like this symbol of strong bond between people. And yeah, so that was this thing, really was the thing. But as I said, without any diamonds, without actually, you know, maybe even not with some precious stones, like other precious stones, it was just like mostly like just, well, basically I think like a lot of well, at least we in Ukraine have, my parents, they had this, just this very basic ring without anything. You just basically a golden circle. So this is what the thing, that was the thing back in Roman times. But after the Roman Empire expired, after the fall of Roman Empire, this tradition was forgotten actually till the beginning of 20th century. So that was not a thing. And I will tell you how it started. So there is this company, the Beers company. They are basically they are the monopolists in diamond industry, and they are like, if I'm not mistaken, they're actually the owners of 90% of everything that is connected to diamonds. So after the Second World War, the Beers, they like made some researches. And people started, you know, to get back to life little by little after the events of the previous like half of the century. And they saw that, you know, people started to get more money, but they were not willing to spend them. But the Beers wanted to have all of the money, and they hired some company that was doing some advertisement. NV Ayer, I'm sorry if I mispronounced it. And with this advertisement, they created a myth that we now think it's a tradition. That back in like centuries ago, the man needed to get the woman that he wanted to marry a diamond ring, you know, and all of this stuff. Well, it's not. Again, as I said, it is not. It was completely made, and for creating this myth, they actually used one of the story that was back in 1477 when emperor in the future, Maximilian from the Holy Roman Empire, he presented to his to the woman that he wanted to marry, to Mary of Burgundy, a diamond ring. So, you know, so they created this story that that was the love of his life and all this stuff, and they were so deeply in love, which in reality they weren't. Most probably they were never actually even saw themselves before the Maximilian came. And most probably he gave this ring actually as a gift, not to Mary, but actually to her father. But, well, they advertised, they created this myth, and that's why we have this myth about diamond rings, and this is an obligatory thing to give to your woman when you're engaging or getting married. And yeah, even you see, even engagement actually between 2015, again, if I'm not mistaken, that was not a thing. That became a thing when one of the popes he actually, well, he decided that marriage needs to be inside the church also. Again, you know, another ruling, another things to control. But before that, engagement was not a thing in a society. Also, I want to mention about the Beers. Actually, I think if you maybe saw, and quite old already, it was like the early 2000s, I believe. This movie came out about it was with Matthew McConaughey and Kate Hudson, if I'm not mistaken. This blonde actress is called. Her name is. And it was something like how to get rid of or how to lose a boyfriend in 10 days, something like that. I don't remember. I don't know the title in English because I mean I'm watching everything in Ukrainian translation. So in Ukrainian translation it sounds like that. So But I think maybe like a lot of you, especially if you're like my age, like 20 plus, like early 20s, I think you know this is like romantic comedy. And the main idea, actually, Matthew McConaughey, he was trying to win the competition to shoot campaigns for De Beers company, De Beers diamond company. And in one of his monologues in his office, he's actually like telling like a really brief story about this, and he's like actually pointing out that they created the myth about everything about diamonds, and this is actually not a very well, back in centuries, there wasn't the people were not fond of diamonds, actually. So yeah, so he was right. He was right. This is the story that is true. Even though, you know, I will correct myself a little bit that the after, you know, after 13th century, like engagement ring was kind of a thing, not very popular, but it was kind of a thing, but without diamonds. So it was completely different precious stones, because mostly people actually did not like how diamonds look like, which is very funny, you know. But again, as it is. Let's get back to our story, because I'm getting blown away again. So except of this type of rings, and as I said, from this period of time, from the beginning of 12th century to 14th, 13th century, the meaning behind the rings changed a bit, and I will mention it. I want to point out that the different niche inside of the rings, that special rings that were created by church and for church highest hierarchies. We're talking about episcopal rings and pastoral rings. This type of things is known starting from 10th century, and by rule they were wearing it over a glove, and they were wearing this ring on this like ring finger on your right arm. In the late Middle Ages, then, most specifically in 1340s, something like that, so it is 14th century, the first part of the 14th century, rings started to lose its, as I said, to lose its role as something like the sign of your status, like protection, or like the sign of your power, and it just quite literally became like a decoration as we use it now. Thus, you see, this became a fashion, and except of clergy, so the nobility, the higher, the lower nobility, the burghers even, they started to wear it, and the clergy, like all type of clergy, started to wear it, not just the highest rank of them, but everyone. And sometimes, I mean, the richer you were, the more like well, you see, this things changed. Now we can be not rich, and we can wear a lot of rings now. But basically, that was what they were doing. Sometimes they would wear like few rings even on one finger, and well, things like that. In terms of the forms of this pastoral rings, so until the late Middle Ages, they were created in the form of cabochon. Cabochon is basically, it's a like form like this, so it is a gemstone that has been shaped and polished, mostly in this like oval forms. This is called a form of cabochon. So the first papal rings were like this, pretty simple, but then they started to add layers, as we can say like this. They started to be surrounded by more smaller stones, or whatever they found necessary to use. Then in 15th, 16th century, the papal rings, they like started to get bigger, like richer, and so in a massive frame of gilded bronze. We could have we could see, you know, the symbol of evangelist. We could see some papal regalias. All of this is with stones and all of this stuff. But a similar function was performed also by silver rings, but not for popes and higher clergy and just higher nobility, but for pious pilgrims, actually. So I think it's safe for me to say that basically they were going to their whatever they were going into the sacred place, and they were coming back with souvenirs, like in modern words, with souvenirs that was in look of the silver rings with images of some saints, or engraved inscriptions, you know, like holy words, and etc, etc. Another also thing about rings is that in this period of time was popular the signed rings, so basically rings with a stamp. and it was popular because at some point, you know, not just nobility and chivalry was allowed to have coat of arms, but also burghers, as I said, and some actually of peasants actually also had also had coat of arms. Starting from quite ancient period of time, our ancestors always believed that different stones, they have their own magic power, they have their own magic abilities and all of this stuff. So stones were valued by their size and by the color saturation, which enhanced their protective capabilities, obviously. So for example, I found some of the meanings in one of the books that I was using. That, for example, sapphires stood up for honesty. Amethyst, for example, were thought to be a charm against drunkenness, and etc., etc. So a lot of interesting things. At the same time, in the late Gothic period, silver belt buckles appeared and, well, started to be more popular. And this type of thing, they were tinted with yellow. Sorry for the pronunciation, because, you know, there's certain words that I found out myself how it's called, some techniques in English when I was preparing this material. So yeah, but yellow basically is a black mixture that was used as an inlay on engraved or etched metal, mostly on silver. And except with yellow, the popular thing was to decorate these belt buckles was animals. Less attention jewelers paid to pendants, and we actually don't really have a lot of examples of pendants, survived examples. The earliest survived one is, they were pretty simple, just, you know, just flat and round, and they were sometimes decorated with pearls, with some colored precious stones, and even animals, some of them. After near 15th, after 15th century, the most popular type of material that was used to create these pendants was ivory or mother of pearls. It's called also nacre. Again, I'm sorry about pronunciation. On which and you could see pretty often the relief image of Christ or of Madonna with Christ. It was one of the most common images carved into these things. Yeah. Small reliefs of figures also was very popular as a decoration. Even more, jewelers were creating the full round sculpture, like, for example, this famous old lady of gilded silver, and this little statue was donated to Abbey of Saint-Denis in 1339 by Jean d'Oeuvre. She was a widow of Charles IV, the Handsome. Another beautiful example I will show you is the cross from Neuilly. So it is, well, I'm sorry for the quality of the picture, but, you know, this is like the only picture that I found. Or, well, maybe I was just searching really badly, but, well, whatever. I found this picture, I have it, so moving on. But we can see, you know, this very delicate work this very delicate filigree work, and we can see that this is still used and is still popular. Another also popular thing was antique cameos and, well, antique, with like old pieces from Roman empires that were just, you know, they were just redone, remade to be more into the fashion of Gothic period. So there were like some precious stones were added for this and all the stuff. But also they were creating like the new cameos with colored stones. So sapphires were very popular, amethyst, rock crystal. Now I will like name few names. A very popular production was in the Meuse Valley. So they were creating a first-class works, like, for example, the reliquary of Saint Stephen that was created like near 2012. Another name also was like of a popular this time master was Hugo Doisy. He had a workshop in Notre-Dame in Namur. and he was also, as you can see, creating an exquisite works with this rich and complex compositions for ornaments, and with multi-figures and all of this stuff. Another thing, very popular thing, I think this one also a lot of people know, even if they're not into art history or something like this, is Limoges enamels. So they started to flourish in this period of time and started to get very popular, and they were doing like a lot of different productions, so like again reliquaries, crosses, wands, and like etc etc. And we can find the examples of Limoges animals in neighboring countries, like for example in Spain. And I will show you the example of the Cooper tombstone of Bishop Mauricio, who died in 1238. We can see that it is cast in a form of reclining figure, and it is decorated with gilding, with chasing, with champlevé animals, and some of the cabochon inserts. And I'm sorry, I'm just, I'm looking a little bit because I cannot remember these names in English. I mean, I found out this is new words into my vocabulary, so, well, but unfortunately in 14th century, well, not unfortunately, because everything was great and still is great at the end, in 14th century, because of the 100 years old war, the production of Limoges animals started to decline, and just overall this like company in modern world, they started to decline, and they had a little hard time, but then they recovered out of that. Then in 13th century, the bone carving became almost like a French monopoly, because the main place where everything from the bone was created, bone carvings and all this stuff, it was Paris. And just overall, you see, Paris of 12th, 13th century is actually a very interesting place, and it was kind of a unique place, can you even say. So they were very, well, I think, again, it's safe for me to say that they were pretty like advanced in what they were doing there, because cities started to grow, and there were a lot of different professions, and in terms of, well, there were no equality obviously in the term that we understand now between men and women, but everyone was working, you see. Everyone was working, no one was left behind. So, for example, I was writing my bachelor degree paper about medieval women sculptors in medieval monasteries. So it was mostly the period of the time of like 12th, 13th century. But obviously I needed to give some historical excerpts, and I read in one of the resources, one of the books that I was using, that in like 12th, 13th century, out of 350 something professions that was in Paris in this period of time, more than 150 or near 150 or a little bit more than 150 was done by women. So that was the only thing like that. Nowhere else you could not see this type of numbers and this type of things. So yeah, so very, very interesting place. And so there is no surprise that Paris was first in some of the things. Just overall, the bone carving and all of this was a very prestigious thing. It was an obligatory detail into decor of rich houses of rich cities. And mostly it was used for religious subjects. So mostly it was mostly they were carving Madonna and a child. And starting from 14th century, the iconography of Madonna changed a bit, and she became this. She started to resemble more like a secular, elegant lady that was like this very gently and coquettishly smiling to her son and all this stuff. And this is actually interesting thinking also how France created the pretty famous iconography of Madonna. So they started to use blue on her, and this is actually one of the first examples when blue color became very, very popular, because before that, before 12th century, blue was one of the like least popular, least known colors. And so tell me and I tell you. The researchers of like 19th century, the like art historians, first art historians, technically, you know, because the art history as a discipline also was created like 19th century. So now it is safe to say art historians, not just writers and something like that. Like Vasari, for example, we cannot call him like art historian because there were no such thing as art history back then in his time in Renaissance period. But so this like first art historians, they actually, you know, they were writing actually books that people could not actually see blue colors back then, back into Roman Empire, back into Greece, you know, because we don't have any examples or like very little examples of some things that were created, that were painted in blue. And this led, you know, these researchers to create this idea that where our eyes changed, we, you know, the evolution hit it at some point and we started to see blue paint and all this stuff, which is not true, obviously. See, in Greece and all of this, in Roman, like in Roman, I mean, in Italy territory and all this stuff, there is no actually, you know, things that you can take, that you can create a blue color of. Because, for example, in France, the Gauls, they were using such thing called Vaida. I'm not sure if, let me check it out, how it will be in English. Oh my god. Okay, so it is called Isatis tinctoria in English, or woad, which is basically a little plant that were then you know, they were soaking it in water, if I'm not mistaken, and the leaves were giving them this very bright blue color. And it is actually, I don't actually think if it is like a fact, but I think that historians believe that they were using also this paint, the Gauls, to, you know, to color themselves when they were going to the wars with Roman soldiers. But then when Venice became a popular and strong city, and they started to have their relationships with East, the blue color started to be more and more popular. Because you see, we are using mostly the blue color from lapis lazuli, which is a stone which is laid just in Afghanistan. So a very rare thing, a very expensive thing, because can you imagine transporting things back in Middle Ages from Afghanistan to Italy and then all over Europe? But French people, France, started to use this color as a divine color, as the color of Mother Mary, and this is how things happened. Why I started to talk about blue color, I don't already remember, but I think also, you know, like little fun fact about blue color. Oh, I started to talk about blue color because I started to talk about Madonna. Yeah. But moving on. A very significant category of jewels was intended to decorate secular costumes. I think we can combine this thing with social status, because medieval costume, they didn't have any pockets, so they were using just belts, and on these belts they were, you know, everything was hanging from these belts. So obviously all of this, like keys, some toiletries for women, some note cards, some calendars and all this stuff, needed to be very intricate, needed to be very delicate, very, you know, because they were showing off, except of the costume, they were showing off also how rich and they, again, their social status by these little things. That's why everything, even like the smallest one things, was done with like filigree, with enamels, with niello, and well, whatever. Everything was inside, and well, everyone would could see like, oh, some rich guy, if you know, if they were not understanding it by their costume. But well, a part of jewelry like this, like jewelry, a part of reliquaries and all of this stuff, a very popular thing was actually table utensils, silverware. At well, till some point, some period of time, a very famous thing for like nobility to use was vessels made from rock crystals. So quite literally, they were carving the stone to create some vessels, like kneaded vessels, because till 15th century, the transparent glass, as we know it now, as we have it now, was unknown. because transparent glass was created in 15th century in well, on Murano Island by Angelo Barovieri, and that was the first ever in history, well, as far as we know, in the world, transparent glass. And after that, obviously, they started to use this formula, and well, I think maybe obviously they were using sometimes the nobility was customized in something from these crystal glasses, because, well, it's like precious stone and all this stuff. But overall, after that, yeah, the crystal clear glass became more popular. Apart from that, the most popular materials that were used for silverware was gold and silver. And it was not just to show off, not to just to show your status that, well, I'm rich and all of this stuff. It was also like investment, maybe. I think I can use this word, because you see, they were we don't have a lot of examples of that, because a lot of them were destroyed. A lot of them were just melted. So the nobility, the monarchs, they were like investing into this golden or silver plates, again, different vessels. So then if something bad happen, they will become bankrupt or something like that, they will lose their monies, they could just, as I said, melt this like silver bowl or this golden plate and create some coins out of that. So this was, I think that was like one of the main reasons, one of the main thing why nobles were customizing this type of table utensils. And I will say even more. In Gothic furniture, they were actually creating a completely different type of cupboards for this purpose, to stuff silver plates or golden plates. Just, well, silver were there. They were making it with locks. So the owner, the nobleman or monarch, they had these keys, and yeah, so they would lock this cupboard. One would steal these pieces and sell it also. So yes, I think even like that. Some of the forms, like typical Gothic form, was created. Like, for example, a typical form was a vessel that was shaped like a boat, where you can, you could put inside all the cutleries, you could put inside the glasses, and, well, everything. Sometimes it was used also just as a decoration. But that was a pretty common thing in Gothic style and Gothic period. The place that were most famous for its silver in Europe was England, but unfortunately we lost a lot of examples in the period of Revolution. But even there, there is this very famous piece of a famous vessel that is called Studley Bowl, and it was created at the end of 14th century, and remarkable for its rare form. Also remarkable for its decoration, because, as you can see, it's decorated with this Gothic inscription, Gothic writing. Another country that was also popular for its jewelry, and also was Germany. So they were mostly popular in terms of religious things, most popular for reliquaries. They were more popular between secular people. They were creating secular products. And why they were popular? Because, they were using in their products, in their things, various artistic techniques, decoration techniques. In one product was creating very exquisite pieces of art. So by the end of Middle Ages, the largest produce centers cities were Paris, were Nuremberg, Cologne, Venice, Brugge. Brugge, actually, I forgot to mention in terms of like adding to our theme of diamonds. Brugge was actually the first place, the first city where the techniques of processing of diamonds was created, actually. So yeah, was a very, but even though they created this type of process, diamonds still become very popular until the second part of 20th century. Overall, to say, jewelry styles were very much alike everywhere, and it is well, and it is sometimes very hard to tell where certain pieces originated from. Some of the very like super distinctive features, the distinctive things, you know, we can figure out what is this. But for example, when I was searching for the pictures for this theme, I saw that, you know, that the Victoria and Albert Museum, the British Museum, the Vienna museums, also some of the museums, they have, for example, a lot of rings, and a lot of rings like just very simple little small rings. And obviously, if they don't have any markings, something super significant, it's very hard to tell where this ring is coming from. So yeah, so this is kind of a problem. So yeah, by the end, I will tell you that Gothic tradition of jewelry was preserved in West Europe until the beginning of the 16th century. In some of the countries, actually, even at the end of 16th century. And after that, we could see that, you know, that the old antique forms, the old antique themes, subjects started to get back, and well, this was the first. This testified to be the beginning of formation of a new style of Renaissance period. Also, you know, wanted to mention that all of this was mostly about, as I said, Western Europe, mostly about just few countries, because in East Europe, Central Europe, well, mostly East Europe, and by East Europe I considered like us Slavic people, excluding Poland, because you know, Poland was always a very Catholic country, and they had a very strong Gothic influence, so they have a lot of Gothic examples. But we, for example, in Ukraine, you will not see any type of Gothic buildings, like anything, because we were moving our own way. We had completely different history from all of the Europe, like Western Europe, Central Europe, and we were mostly under the influence of Byzantine Empire, then, you know, different other empires. Even though, you know, we were under the rule of Rzeczpospolita, or Poland, for quite a while, but still, you know, they didn't influence. Well, not in the Gothic period. In Gothic period, they didn't really influence anything, because in our like in one of the cities, one of the biggest cities of Ukraine, Lviv, which it's like 70 kilometers from the border with Poland, and you would see like a completely different architecture. Just overall, the west part of Ukraine is completely different, because it was, you know, under the rule of Poland, the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, you know, and all of this stuff. So they influenced quite a lot, but there was mostly Baroque period. So you would see examples of Baroque, actually, or Renaissance examples of architecture and art pieces. But overall, yeah, on our other part of Ukraine, you will not see any type of examples of Gothic art, of traditional Gothic art as we imagine. So yeah, so all of the information that I told in this video was mostly about West and, well, Central Europe, and just overall countries that were under the Catholic guidance. So yeah, so this is everything for today. I believe it will be a very long video, because I was distracting myself with a lot of these different facts that I didn't even know that I had in my head. As I mentioned in all of my videos, that I think the most important thing for me is that you find out something new for yourself, you find out something interesting for yourself, and well, wish you good day, good evening. You need to go to sleep if it's the middle of the night, and you're like whatever you are, and hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.